You are not watching a demonstration of the latest title for PlayStation 2, but rather the latest tool for training in the Santa Ana Police Department. Welcome to Talk About Town. I'm Finally Bensley. On this month's episode, we focus on some of the tools and techniques employed by the Santa Ana Police Department in the training of their officers. You are watching images from a vehicle pursuit simulator. Composed of powerful computers, the simulator generates a three-dimensional world in which officers interact with dangerous situations that can and do occur in the course of their duties. This all looks like pretty complicated equipment. How does it assist the officers?
Well, what it does for the officers is it allows us to create a potentially dangerous environment, such as pursuit driving, and yet in an environment where there's no risk to the community and no risk to the officers. When you first sit down in it takes some adaptation involved to understand the size of the car, the braking, and the steering. But as soon as I turned on the red lights and siren and I started chasing an individual suspect, I became involved in the simulator and I found myself driving it as if it was a car. It really does feel closer to a car than you might imagine. The steering and the braking, we have anti-lock brake in it. You'll get a sense of pulsation through the pedal if you're braking real hard. We have brake fade so that if you're overdriving your brakes, it will go away and you won't have your brakes. You'll have to pull over and stop. There's also a crash feature so that if you run over a curb or a stop sign, you'll feel it through the steering wheel. You'll get some kind of feedback to you that says, hey, something has happened when you ran off the road or hit the curb. And then if you come into a major crash, of course, then the scenario stops and ends and you've basically not successfully passed the scenario.
Now, if it comes to a big crash, you get a big loud boom and everything?
Yes, you get a big boom, you get a feedback through the steering wheel, and you know you've crashed, and then your screen goes away, and everybody else in the room knows you've crashed.
Which probably could be embarrassing, right?
Right, which is what we're trying to avoid. So. This particular monitor gives the instructor the ability to overview the confined area of where the officer starts a scenario. So as you can see, we can see the buses, we can see the cars, we can see the intersections, and we have the ability to zoom in closer or tighter and follow the police car through the entire scenario to watch all the conflicts and to watch the reaction of the police car and other traffic coming into the picture. Okay, what the instructor has the ability to do now is to follow the situation and look at all the defensive driving tactics and the pursuit tactics that we try to teach our officers. Here we've had a vehicle that ran in the intersection, ran a red light. So now the officer is doing his duty and going after the individual and is now in pursuit of them. The officer needs to watch for the intersections, for the conflicts that come into place, and try to evaluate that and use that in a balance test as to whether or not it is worth the pursuit to continue the pursuit or not. In this particular situation, you see the traffic, you see the officer is using the good driving tactics of staying to the left because all citizens are supposed to pull to the right. They're trying to avoid the conflicts as far as the other vehicles in the lane. Now the suspect, he has no rules. He can drive any way he wants to get away. The officer, on the other hand, has a duty to drive with due regard for public safety. Here, as you can see, he's driving much slower through the conflicts when the citizens become involved. You can see pedestrians. The suspect has already gone through because they don't care. We still have an obligation and we still care for the officer's safety and public safety. So they've slowed down. The officer now has slowed down and is backing off the pursuit. Remember, we're only following them for a red light violation at this point. That's all we know. You see the school bus, you see the school zone. The officer is now backed off to the point where the suspect is probably going to get away. But we're trying to teach that that's worth it in this balance test as far as whether or not it's worth the pursuit for what we're chasing them for. The instructor monitors it up to this point. He sees the replay and he can feed this information back to the officer. And as you see in this case, the vehicle is getting away, which we believe is a good decision on the officer's part, that he allowed it to go away because of the conflicts of the motorcycles, the pedestrians, and the school zones.
The apprehension of suspects often involves learning a disciplined interaction between man and machine. The pursuit simulator supplies an excellent environment for this interaction, giving officers new confidence and skill in the correct use of police vehicles. When we come back, we will look into the Santa Ana Police Department's Physical Agilities Test to see some of the physical requirements of being an officer and to see how new recruits are tested before their admission into the police academy.